What everyone's worried about is next week, Monday, Tuesday, when Rome could be looking at something like 41, 42 centigrade, which I think could be a record for Rome. And that's nothing compared to Sicily and Sardinia, where they're talking about up to 47. So that's
Goodness.
kind of just unlivable.
Let's talk the heat, shall we now? At 6:54, 15 cities across Italy are on red alert as extreme heat continues to affect southern Europe. Record temperatures are predicted next week. Let's go live to Rome then and speak to Tom Kington, the Times' Italy correspondent. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Hello.
Are you hot and sweaty yet?
It's getting there. I had to shut the window here to so I could hear you properly, and I'm already suffering. So the moment this is over, I'll fling the windows open again and try and suck in that tiny bit of cold or cooler morning air before everything gets really, really sort of infernal again.
And what sort of temperatures are we talking about as really infernal?
Well, actually, in Rome, towards the end of this week, it's been kind of normal, if that's normal, early mid 30s. What everyone's worried about is next week, Monday, Tuesday, when Rome could be looking at something like 41, 42 centigrade, which I think could be a record for Rome. And that's nothing compared to Sicily and Sardinia, where they're talking about up to 47. So that's kind of just unlivable.
So how are people preparing, well, coping with the heat now, I suppose, but with one eye on next week? Has local governments started to enforce different measures to help people start to think about coping? What's there?
Well, it's more about kind of just health warnings at the
Right.
moment. This week in Rome, the town hall has been telling people to try and not go outside between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the evening,
Goodness.
and just sort of strong advice on what to eat, what not to eat. So lots of fresh fruit, lots of liquids. Stay away from alcohol, coffee, and
That's like
sweet
they're
fizzy
telling the
drinks.
Italians not to breathe. Stay away from alcohol and coffee.
Um, the idea is that might make you feel better in the short term, but actually, if you slug back a bottle of wine to try and get over the heat, you're going to feel a lot worse in the long term.
Are people listening though, Tom?
I think Italians are actually fairly wise when it comes to dealing with the heat, because this is a hot country. So you kind of come across these sort of strange little rules that Italians abide by, which make all kinds of sense. Chocolate disappears from shops during the summer because the idea is that you don't want to be carrying chocolate bars around because you'll just wind up with a soggy mess in your pocket. Um, um, Elder Italians that I know don't eat pork in the summer because they believe that it doesn't keep well in the heat. Then of course, they all know how to dress accordingly. They have their summer wardrobes that come out, and then there are various things that people do, like, as I said at the top, keeping those windows shut during the day, as opposed to opening windows, which is what perhaps you do instinctively. But you've got to keep the windows shut to preserve what cool air you've trapped in the house overnight.
We were even doing that in the UK in June, signing up to that. You've also tracked down, haven't you, the person responsible for naming these heat waves. They aren't usually named, are they? This one's Cerberus, but the extreme heat next week has got a new name.
Next week, it's Caronte in Italian, or Sharon in English, which is the name of the boatman who, in mythology, would ferry souls across the river Styx to the underworld. So, all these crazy names, and I was thinking, who's making these up? We know that in America, for example, there are various sort of authorities that make up names for hurricanes and make up pretty dull names as well. Whereas over here in Italy, we're getting these crazy sort of mythological names for heat waves. And I thought that it would be the state, some sort of state meteorological authority, but it turns out that it's a guy called Antonio Sano, who runs a private weather forecasting service called Il Meteo, which is well used here in Italy. Quite a wily, smart guy who back in 2012 first dubbed a heat wave, Cerberus, and it was just totally lapped up by the press.
Clearly
which was,
loves his Greek mythology.
Wonderful headline, great for journalists, and he's been doing it ever since, and basically gets to dictate the names of heat waves. He said that he's got a long list of names lined up for heat waves which will come along later this summer, climaxing in Lucifer, which is his that's his top name.
We'll have to leave it there. Tom, apologies.
On the Free Times